Good morning from Lisbon. Yesterday was such an insane travel day. The flight itself was fine, it was just really long, and by the time we got to the hotel, we were like so exhausted and hungry and had headaches, and then the hotel tells us they don't accept children, which was not made clear on the website. That's never happened to us before. I mean, we've traveled all around the world with Nico, and so we were very stunned and had to very quickly find another place to stay. Of course, all of the hotels were already booked, but Clayton was amazing and pulled off finding this amazing Airbnb that we're at now. This is the back patio. Nico's just like playing with trucks here because there's like a whole playroom with tons of toys for him. He loves it. It's like a 4-bedroom Airbnb, much bigger than what we need, but so wonderful and in a great part of the city. So it all worked out well, but we were so exhausted last night. We got like burgers and fries, sat in the back patio, and we're like, that was a crazy day. We all slept super long, woke up feeling so much better, and we're about to go out and meet up with some people for coffee and just explore the city. Okay, so the sidewalks are quite narrow here, but I'm still really glad that we brought our Up a Baby Vista because the cobblestones, these big wheels are nice going over them versus like a small travel stroller I think would just be so bumpy. It is Saturday morning. We are about to go on a little walk to breakfast, but I thought I would show you a little tour of the Airbnb. It's a little messy now because we've been here for a full day, but I just thought I would show you because we actually really like it, even though we found it so last minute. Nico, do you want to give us a tour? So this is like the master bedroom. Nico, there's so many bedrooms. Hey Nico, what does the elephant say? That's a great elephant. Okay, come on, let's show them. Let's go walk this way. Okay, so down this way, here's one little bathroom. That's cute. And then there's another big bathroom down here. And it's so fun because a family must live here sometimes because there are so many bath toys for Nico. Nico, did you take a bath? Yeah, you love the bath here. Okay, let's not touch that. Yeah. And then there's another bedroom back here that we haven't even used. That's our car seat. I don't know why it's in here. But yeah, another huge bedroom that we have not needed yet. Wish we had some friends in town to stay with us because we have plenty of room in this place. But it's been really nice just to have like even a hallway. I'll show you Nico's favorite part, which is this huge playroom that has more toys than he even knows what to do with. It's been amazing because he wakes up pretty early, and instead of having to go to a park like we do in Amsterdam, he can just come in here and play with so many freaking toys. Because yeah, we've been living in a really tiny apartment in Amsterdam for about 2 months now. And yeah, we need more space. Another bedroom that Clayton's just using for his clothes. And then this is the living room. And we've been really loving this outdoor space also for Nico. Just open up these doors and he'll run around with like a soccer ball and stuff. And it's just so pretty. The weather is amazing and it's so lush. Yeah, so like so much space. It feels huge compared to our spot in Amsterdam, which makes me feel like when we go home to Nashville, we're just gonna be so grateful for how big our house is. And then this is the kitchen. Can actually make an espresso and a cute little Smeg fridge. So yeah, I mean, honestly, for having found it so last minute, it's been a really great spot and it's in a wonderful location. Oh, there's a diaper just randomly in the hallway. Yeah, it's been wonderful.
2, 3. You're not counting. Count more. What?
Can you count?
1, 2, 7, 9, 10.
Okay, so we are walking to breakfast at Heim. We went there for breakfast back in like 2019 when it was just me and Clayton, and we loved it. So we're gonna go back. So we are staying in the, what's the name of our neighborhood?
The Principe Real. So
Principe Real?
Principe Real.
Principe Real is the neighborhood that we're staying in, and we're walking over more towards the Estrala Lapa neighborhood, which I've heard is better for kids. We obviously couldn't be very choosy about where we were staying because we had to make a last minute decision. This neighborhood's great. It's very popular and has tons of stuff close by, but it's a little bit like busier and
more
big
for
hills.
Like night vibes and like people going with friends or like a honeymoon trip or something. Less for like
families
pushing strollers and that kind of stuff.
So if we're thinking long term, like part of this trip is seeing if we could see ourselves living here long term. So we want to check out some neighborhoods that we could see ourselves living in with Nico. So Estrala Lapa is one of those. We went there yesterday as well, and it just feels like a little bit more calm, but it's still like very central. Like it's close to the water. It's like in the city. So today we're gonna rent a car and we're gonna drive like outside the city a little bit. It's still in Lisbon, but there's cities or towns, neighborhoods I've heard in the city of Lisbon that are just like a little bit quieter and potentially more family friendly.
More removed from like the central congested areas and maybe a little more spacious. A little less hilly and more flat, so
we will hopefully make it to those today in the car. So I think that's probably the hardest thing about Lisbon just compared to Amsterdam is like it is just very crowded. It's like we are right now like in the very center of the city, so it's just like pretty intense. Trying to have a panic attack because Nico's had a fever for over 24 hours. So we're gonna go see the doctor. We're gonna go get breakfast, we're gonna get a little smoothie, and then we're gonna go to the doctor and make sure that you're okay. Let's say it together. Okay. The world is safe and friendly. I am safe. I am at peace with life. The world is safe and friendly. I am safe. I am healthy. Say, I am strong. I am at peace with life. The world is safe and friendly. I am safe. I am at peace with life. The world is safe and friendly. I am safe. I am at peace with life. Right? Everything's going to be fine today? Yeah. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to go to the doctor. They're going to make sure that you're okay. And the world is safe and friendly. I am safe. I am at peace with life. The world is safe and friendly. I am safe. I am at peace with life. I am safe. I am strong. I am healthy. Yeah? Are you going to be okay? Okay. The world is safe and friendly. I am safe. I am at peace with life. Good. Okay. Patty cake, baker's man. Mama? You're so warm. You're so hot. Hold on, let me look. You want me to look with my special temperature guy? You ready? All right, special temperature guy. You ready? Doo-doo. Hold still. Okay, not bad. Should we check mommy? Okay, let's check mommy. Let's check mommy. Okay, now let's check Nikki. Okay, not bad. You gonna be okay? Good morning. Yesterday turned out to be a little bit different than we planned. We did not go and visit other neighborhoods. because as you can see, Nico is checking his temperature. He's had a fever for like 24 hours now. You okay? He's had a fever for like 24 hours now, which is just so scary as a parent, first time parent, when he's under 2. You do it, press that button. So we are going to go grab some breakfast, and we're going to go take him to go see a doctor, just because I want to be extra safe before we go to... no more monkeys jumping on the bed. The mama called the doctor. The doctor said... Yeah. So I just want to be extra safe because we're going to comporta, which is a beach that's like more remote, and it makes me a little bit nervous being farther away from a hospital. I just want to make sure that there's no like underlying infection that we're ignoring. So I think we're gonna go to a private hospital. We looked up like public versus private, pros and cons. I rather just pay the money for the shore. I'll explain this in a second. Okay, I'll explain this later. Hi, what a crazy turn of events. So we are back in Amsterdam, and I don't even know if I'm gonna end up posting this vlog of Portugal because it ended up just being such a shit show. So I think I last filmed when we were going to the doctor on that Sunday in Portugal, and Nico had had a fever for 24 hours, and I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't some underlying infection. Backstory, he only has 1 kidney. We found out when I was pregnant with him, and we've had all the testing done to make sure he's okay, and he is okay. We just have to make sure to like protect that 1 kidney. So one of the things that's the most dangerous for him is a UTI, because that can infect the kidney, which then can damage the kidney, and we don't want to damage the kidney. But it's really hard when you have a baby because they can't tell you if like their pee burns or any of the other classic symptoms of a UTI. So a high fever with no other real symptoms is a sign. So when we went to the doctor, they checked his ears, no ear infection. They checked his mouth, no sores. So they're like, okay, let's do a urine sample. So they actually did a bagged specimen, which I never done before. So they like tape a bag, you know, in his diaper area until he pees. It took him like 20 minutes. He peed, and then they like dip a stick in it, and it tested positive for a UTI. That really freaked me out because he's never had a UTI before. Like I said, it's something I've been really worried about. So the doctor prescribes an antibiotic, and we went to 2 different pharmacies. It was the weekend, so a lot of them were closed. We went to 2 different pharmacies. They were all out of the antibiotic. They said, usually we're out of this, so you should go back to the doctor, get another prescription. Mind you, this is after we had already been at the doctor for 4 hours. So then we get a new prescription, finally get the antibiotic. It needs to be refrigerated, and we have about an 1.5-hour drive to the beach because our next place we were staying was Comporta. So by this point, I'm emotionally and physically so exhausted. I'm like holding Nico's hand, trying to get him to fall asleep in the car seat while holding the antibiotic right against the air vent, trying to make sure it stays like refrigerated. By the time we get to the hotel, I was just very exhausted. And Nico's fever was just still so high, unless we stayed like really on top of Tylenol like every 4 hours. Like if we waited 6 hours, it was just like, it'd go back up to like 102, 103. It was just really scary. Something though about the Portugal doctor, so I very quickly just looked up online and was like reading Reddit threads about where to take him. So in Portugal, they have private hospitals and they have public. We chose to go to a private hospital. It's more expensive, but they said that like the waiting times would be shorter and the care would be a little bit better. I have no idea if that's true because I've never been to a public hospital in Portugal, knock on wood. I mean, we still were there for 4 hours, so I don't really know, but it was a really nice hospital. Like it felt really clean and nice, and everyone was like overall pretty great. And I think the appointment was like 100 euros. So that's like super expensive by Portuguese standards. For me, being an American that like pays a lot of money for any medical things, it wasn't like that huge of a deal. So that ended up being fine. So we got to Comporta. I'm a little bit sad that I didn't vlog anything, but obviously I was like so not in the headspace, but we had a beautiful hotel. Comporta is just the most beautiful beaches. It's really lovely. I'd love to go back sometime under better circumstances. But obviously I was not in the mood to vlog. We were just trying to get Nico to eat anything. He would not eat. And funny story, I had just weaned him down to only one nurse at night before he goes to bed. But then once he became sick, I mean, it was nursing around the clock, and there was no way I was gonna say no, because it was like getting nutrients into him, especially with all the medicine we were giving him. So yeah, I was like nursing around the clock, so I was starving all the time, but he wasn't really eating much. He would drink a little bit, but like, of course you're worried about that. So anyway, we sleep. Next day, we're like, okay, let's go to the beach, because it was like cool enough that we could just lay on a like beach chair and not worry about him getting overheated. And it was really nice just like be in nature and relax. So that was really beautiful. I'm glad that we at least got to see the beach one day. He, again, though, didn't really eat anything. There was a point where he ate a couple French fries, and I was like trying not to freak out because I was like so excited, but I didn't want him to like stop eating them. But I mean, it was maybe like 5 French fries. So he really didn't eat much that day. So we go back to the hotel that afternoon. He had, you know, runny diapers. I won't get into the details from the antibiotic. He started throwing up more. It really only happened when his fever got really high again. So like in the middle of the night, we didn't wake him up to give him, you know, fever medicine like Tylenol. So he would wake up, it'd be back to like 102, 103. He would throw up, I think, just from being like so hot. So that's just like scary though, when your kid's like throwing up, they're not eating, they have a really high fever. They said it would take 24 to 48 hours for the antibiotic to break the fever, but like after 24 hours, I'm just like, okay, this is freaky. So Clayton was just like, do you want to go back to Amsterdam like a day early? And I was like, yes, I would just feel better being back in a place that just like feels like our home base. And we knew we needed to do a like follow-up doctor's appointment, because the doctor in Portugal had said later this week, once you're back in Amsterdam, please get an ultrasound to look at his kidney and make sure that everything's okay. So we pack up everything to leave the next morning. Clayton has to drive like 30 minutes each way to go to a grocery store to find a cooler to put the antibiotic in so it can stay cool for the whole entire flight. Comporta's lovely, but it's pretty remote. Like, it's a beautiful beach, but you're not close to a lot of things. So it was just hard to find like ibuprofen for Nico, or a cooler, or even like food that we both liked or needed at the time. So that was also making it a little bit difficult to stay there, and we just felt safer being back in Amsterdam, where we're like so close to doctors and pharmacies and all the things. So we got back to Amsterdam. By the time we got back, it had been just about 48 hours of the antibiotic, and I took his like rectal temperature, because that's like the most accurate, and it was down to 98, and I was like so relieved. So his fever had broken. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, it must have been a UTI, because the antibiotic really did work around the time that they said it would. But then a few hours later, and then like the next morning, he started having a rash. It started like under his eyes a little bit, and then it was all over his back. So I sent a picture to my pediatrician. My pediatrician at home in Nashville is an absolute godsend. Like, I don't know what I would do without her. So I've been texting her this whole time, and she was like, okay, that's really interesting. This rash looks like a virus. It looks like rosella. And so then she explains this whole theory that she thinks it wasn't a UTI. After all, it was just a virus. And the reason why is because the Portuguese doctor didn't tell me this, but my doctor's explaining, and then I started Googling, that bagged specimens are not a super accurate way to test urine. The only way to like reliably test urine for a UTI is through a catheter. Or if like your kid is older and can pee into a cup, like a clean catch, but like taping a bag onto someone, it just like has a very high risk for contamination, and then your results wouldn't be accurate. I didn't realize any of this. This was new. So then I was like, oh my God, maybe it wasn't a UTI the whole time. Maybe it was a coincidence that his fever broke at the 48 hours, because with rosella, he would have had a high fever for 3 to 4 days. So same timing. And then about 12 hours later, you would break out into a rash once you're no longer contagious. So I'm like, oh my God, okay. But she's like, keep taking the antibiotic and still schedule the ultrasound until you know for sure. So we're like, okay, we need to go see a doctor in Amsterdam now, because in Amsterdam you have to see a general doctor before you can see a specialist. And a specialist, a urologist, a pediatric urologist, is the kind of doctor who can do an ultrasound. So we go to urgent care, because I'm like, I don't have a general doctor here, so let's just go to urgent care where we can like find a doctor. They were super sweet there, but they're like, no, you have to go to like a general doctor. We can't refer you to a specialist here. So then they gave us a phone number for a general doctor, and we went to them the next day. And this is where I learned something really interesting about Dutch culture and like Dutch healthcare. And I talked to some Dutch people after this all happened, and they confirmed that I'm not crazy. So this doctor, again, was really nice, but he was just like super skeptical. So I explained everything that happened and was like, okay, like we need to see a pediatric urologist and have an ultrasound scheduled, like 2 different doctors. My doctor in Portugal and my doctor at home are both saying, schedule an ultrasound to look at the kidney. And he just looked at me and was like, your kid looks healthy, like he looks fine. He doesn't have a fever, does he? And I'm like, no, the fever broke because he's on an antibiotic. And he's like, he looks healthy and fine, like he doesn't need an ultrasound. And I'm like, okay. I pushed back a little bit, but like I'm not a doctor, so I don't know like the actual facts in ultrasound. He's like, it's not gonna show you anything. And I'm like, I don't think the other doctors would have said to do it if that's the case, but I don't know, I just kind of froze in the moment. He also was like, I don't think it was a UTI, it's probably Rosella, that rash looks like Rosella. So then I go home and I'm like, okay. So then the next step was our urine sample from the Portuguese doctor. They would then send it to a lab to look at more in depth, where they look at it under a microscope to find out exactly what bacteria were in it. So we still haven't gotten those results back. They were supposed to get them back on Wednesday. We called on Thursday. It's a holiday because it's always a freaking holiday in Europe. And so then we call on Friday. It ended up being like a back and forth for 8 hours with the hospital just trying to get the freaking results, because they're like, you have to come in person to get them. We can't tell you over the phone. Like, well, we don't live in Portugal. And then they're like, okay, you have to download this app. We download the app. Then they're like, oh, well, we have to verify your information. You're like, okay, what documents do you need? Passport, birth certificate, all these things. But it takes forever to get like, even them telling you what they need. And then by the time you send it, then it takes like another 3 hours for them to like approve it. And then they'll be like, oh, actually we need one more thing. By the time we freaking got the results back, it was like the end of Friday. We were having it. And then the results said it was still a UTI. And it said what bacteria it was. I sent it to my doctor back home. Again, bless her. I don't know what I would do without her. And she's like, this is weird. She's like, yes, still take the antibiotic because we still don't know if it was a UTI or not. But she's like, the bacteria that it was just seemed kind of weird. She's like, I still feel like it was a contaminated like collection, and you're still gonna find bacteria under there, but you don't know that it was actually from the urine versus like being contaminated. So she's like, I still don't think it's a UTI, but you have to play it safe. So just like finish the antibiotic. So all of this to say, I'm so sorry if that was like really boring, but I don't know. I think it's interesting. At least as a parent, I actually kind of like hearing other people's stories, because if anything similar ever happens to me, I kind of like know what to look out for, or I know like, oh, this person's been in this situation. So like if you ever get a bagged specimen, just know like it's not completely accurate. Still follow your doctor's advice, of course, but like maybe don't freak out as much as I did. Anyway, so by this point, we had already decided to go back to the States a little bit early. About a week and a half early. We were just feeling, I was just feeling emotionally and physically so spent. It was just a little bit nerve-wracking. We love Amsterdam and the doctors here have been great, but there's just something about being at home with your doctors. And we're not established here enough. Like we're just testing out Amsterdam. We don't actually live here, so it just doesn't feel as like grounded. And it sounds really nice right now to just have family, friends, and our doctors close by. So we'd already moved our flights up. So the plan now, we are flying home in about a week, and we're just gonna do follow-up appointments with Nico. Then we're gonna go to a pediatrician and do a urine test, and then we'll go to his urologist and get the ultrasound. But I think it was really interesting because it did show us like Portuguese healthcare, Dutch healthcare. I now know, and after talking to some Dutch people, they're like, oh yeah, so general doctors are kind of like the gatekeeper to specialists, and you have to convince them to let you see a specialist. So you really need to like almost make it sound worse than it is, which I would never have thought to do, because I feel like my experience in America is that doctors there like almost freak out, where like even if you mention a tiny thing, they're like, we're gonna do 1,000,000 tests. And sometimes I'm like, oh, do we need to do all of that? And so it's just like a very different approach here, and I would not have known that unless we went through this. And it just kind of goes to show, like, I think I've always really romanticized the idea of healthcare being different outside the States, and I still think it's absolutely ridiculous how expensive insurance is in America. And trust me, it still is not easy. I mean, when I was pregnant with Nico, insurance was the #1 most stressful thing I went through. It was more stressful than actually giving birth. So I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it was helpful to see that like it's not perfect in the Netherlands either. Like there are some other things. Yes, it's going to be way less expensive for insurance and for care in general, but there's just different culture and there's different personalities and different approaches, and knowing that is really helpful as we are testing this out. And then also Portugal, a wonderful city. The infrastructure though, it just isn't as advanced as Amsterdam, and I think if we are going to move somewhere long term, I would feel a lot more comfortable when I have a young child, if we have future children, like being in a place where I feel a little bit more confident in the infrastructure and healthcare. So these are not the things I thought we would be testing out during our time here, but I am kind of glad in retrospect that we at least had these experiences. I'm glad that Nico's okay, and I'm glad that we are going to go home. But Portugal ended up, wow, just being so different than we planned. This vlog was supposed to be so fun and cute and like showing you fun places to go in Lisbon and showing you the beach in Comporta. I will put some things in the description of this video, just like recommendations on places that we either did go or are planning on going in case you have a trip coming up and you want to try. But thanks to everyone, especially who follows me on Instagram and who was just so supportive through the entire week. Like I could cry. The amount of DMs that I got while Nico was really going through it was so sweet, and like especially people who have had any similar experience. I was like getting messages from people who have one kidney or who have a dad with one kidney, and like just when you're in it, there's nothing more comforting than like hearing from other people who have also been through it or who are just like thinking of you. So thank you so much. Like that means everything to me, and it's what makes social media like a really sweet place. I think there's so many positives and negatives to social media that I have experienced, but that is a positive and is what kind of keeps me like showing up and sharing these stories. So I could not thank you enough. Sorry this vlog was way less fun and was mostly just me sitting on my bedroom floor telling you the whole saga, but I'll talk to you later in a more fun vlog to come.